as much as it is great to have that circle of support from friends, you do have, they're not neutral, right? Your friend, like they shouldn't be, like they're your friend, right? Like, and they might be extremely upset themselves about, whatever has occurred, right? So having those people that are professionals, that are compassionate people, because most people that work in this field actually are quite compassionate people, can make a big difference, because there you can run things through and you can get feedback, right? As opposed to just, somebody, telling you what you want to hear.
Welcome back to the Divorce Circle. We're here for part 2 with Alyson Jones. One of the things I would say during my divorce that I noticed is that the best advice that I got was from my parenting coordinator, was from my therapist, and that sometimes the advice I received from my friends did not work out as well for me. And it might have been some of my friends. I have one friend that gave me the most incredible advice. But those of my friends that were not divorced and had not navigated through a similar process might not have understood. We don't necessarily take that knee-jerk reaction of how to deal with a situation, or even friends, basically friends and family. And so I do say that having that extra support of going to somebody who understands the actual impact to your children, the impact to your ongoing relationship. It's even an impact when you're negotiating your divorce, how you speak, how you act, all that stuff is going to help you if you have the right professional to support you through that.
That is an excellent point, and I'm glad you brought that up, because as much as it is great to have that circle of support from friends, you do have, they're not neutral. Right? Your friend, like they shouldn't be, like they're your friend, right? Like, and they might be extremely upset themselves about, whatever has occurred, right? So having those people that are professionals, that are compassionate people, because most people that work in this field actually are quite compassionate people, can make a big difference, because there you can run things through and you can get feedback, right? As opposed to just, somebody, telling you what you want to hear, right? And that's one of the hard things. Like I work with a lot of divorcing couples, and, sometimes I have to give them feedback that is a little hard for them to hear, but I have to say the majority of them thank me for it. They really do. They say, thank you. I kind of lost perspective. Like the thing I always say is if something's too close to you, you can't see it.
Yes.
Right? Like if you've got a coffee cup and you put it right in front of you put it right in front of your face, you don't even know what is in front of your face. But if you put it way out here and stretch it out here, you see that it's a cup. It's like that with our emotions and relationships. When they're that close, we just don't have perspective. But when we hold it at length, and that's what a good professional can do, is hold it at length and have perspective from a compassionate and caring place. And
not just a short-term perspective, but also a long-term perspective of the effect of your emotion, because you're so emotionally charged with everything that's going on. And there's so much hurt. There's so much, change and fear around what's coming and what's going to happen. Where am I going to live? What's going to happen to me financially? And all the emotions as to what led to that moment where you're sitting there, is that sometimes, your friends just want to back you up with coming back with more emotional reactions, and that might not always serve you. Is that right?
Exactly. I mean, it's not the thing to map your movement on, right? Like it's nice to feel like sometimes when we are outraged, it feels good to have our friends outraged with us. Who hasn't?
I can't believe she did that.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't believe he did that.
Everybody does that, right? Where we want, when you love somebody, you care about them, and you're mad. You're on their team. You're their warrior too.
Yeah.
And in the world, we need that. I need to feel I have my friends have my back, and if somebody hurts me, they're upset, right? And so that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's just thing. Different roles, and they're not going to have that perspective. Right. But, some of them might to some degree. Like, I'm not saying disregard what your friends say. I'm not saying that at all, because it's so precious. But it's just, that's where sometimes we need the reality checks and those, other views, even if we don't always want to hear it. And sometimes we need to gently be told when we haven't behaved well.
Yes. And I think, going back to the conversation around children, when we're emotionally charged and we're around our children, we need to have somebody who can teach us when is the right time to take a step back and think about what we say in those moments and how we behave in front of them. I remember moments where, something happened and I got really emotionally charged and it affected everything about me, that there's no way that even if I didn't tell my children, and I didn't tell my children, and it was like, what happened, Mom? All of a sudden you were fine and all of a sudden you're not fine. What's just happened?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, something happened with Daddy and it's between us. And it's an adult conversation, not a kid's conversation. And it doesn't really have anything to do with you. It has to do with the two of us.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that you're concerned about me, but it's not something that concerns you.
And normalize it. Like, if you're absolutely right, they'll notice. And if they're attached to you and attuned to you, they're going to know something's off. And if you just give them the, everything is fine answer, like they're not going to buy it, right? No. But you can say very, very much like what you just said. But, you can also add on to that saying, when I say normalize it, I mean, when you're going through times, or sometimes it's just natural to have bumps.
Yeah.
And bumps is a good word. Dad and I are just going through a bump right now.
That's great.
Yeah, because it's just like, nothing's inauthentic, but you're not pretending, but you're also sort of saying, like, it's natural. We're going through a bump. We'll get through this. This is some of the adult stuff, right? And we'll work that out. It's just natural. And sometimes the kids will be really on you. They'll be like, I want to know what's happening. I want to know what's happening.
What did he do?
Yeah, what did he do?
Yeah.
Why are you mad at, Dad? Like, what's this? And, you can sort of say to them, hey, guys, like, we all have our boundaries, and I'm not going to put you in the middle of the stuff between Dad and I.
Yeah.
Right? It's natural for us to have some bumps. Remember how I told you guys we weren't communicating that well and we couldn't fix some of those problems? Sometimes we still struggle with communication, but, we love you, and that's always going to be number one. Right? So there's ways to have real conversations, but you have to watch a little bit that you don't fall over into indulging yourself and starting to vent and let it all out.
Well, this happened and that happened and he did this and that, and she did this and that happened and whatever. Yeah, I distinctly remember one specific day that happened, and it was like, what happened, Mom? And it's like, and I was like, nothing, we got this, it's fine. And then I went into my room and called my dad.
Yeah. And the thing, like I said, don't forget, like, if you do trip up and you start venting, you can come back to your kids and say, you know what, like, now that I've kind of calmed down, I realized that I said too much.
Yeah.
And that's not the way I want to teach you guys about, dealing with emotions and conflict. So you can own it, and they will respect you. Having your children's respect is so important, right? And one of the things that happens sometimes through divorce and separation, if parents continue to behave poorly, or they just, are modeling, an inability to deal with conflict or each other, is they lose their children's respect. They still have the kids love them. Right? So, but they can respect somebody who's made a mistake and comes back and owns it. And you know what? We're asking our children to do that all the time. We're trying to teach our children about fixing mistakes. So we've got to model fixing mistakes.
So what happens? You've got children who are affected by the way that their parents are talking about each other and sharing and everything. And we're talking about the right way to do it. But what happens when it's the wrong way? How do we support those kids? Like, what should those children do? Say they're adults now and they're dealing with the fallout of what's happened during their parents' divorce and how it's affected them now as an adult. Like, what do they do? What are their options? What are the resources for them?
Well, I highly encourage parents, to get support for their kids, during a separation and divorce, just to help them deal with it. Change, help them deal with the grief. Remember I talked anger is often unresolved grief, right? And we see it in adults, we see it in kids. So getting some support in there doesn't mean anything's wrong or anybody's broken, but having a safe place where they can have some guidance as well is really helpful. And, I'm a strong believer. Obviously, I'm, a therapist, but, I believe this to be of value. I wouldn't have committed my, pretty much my career to doing this work if I didn't, and if I hadn't seen positives come from it, right? Those kids, and the great thing about being a therapist for a long time, because I've been around for a while now, is that, these kids have come back to me as adults and they've said, that helped so much. That helped so much, right? So, if you're fortunate enough to have a good therapist for your children to help them move through these things and protect them a bit from the conflict, because it really can, having that neutral, safe person, that's great. If you don't have that, as an adult, you can seek that out also and know that, if you've never really worked on it or resolved it or dug into it, it's probably going to emerge in your life. And it'll often emerge when you get partnered or you have children. And so, getting some support at any time in your life can be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a client in the last couple of years. Actually, I supported him through 4 years of going through his separation and divorce. And I spoke to him. He's now remarried. And he said, Sabina, I have to say something. And he said, I want to say, you told me when we were going through the separation and divorce that I should get my kids into therapy throughout, like as soon as we were separated, that I should get my kids into therapy. And they were 5 and 8, I think, at that time. And he said, I had to fight for that. He said it took a lot to win that in the divorce. And he said, it's been so valuable for my kids. And he said, I just want to thank you for that. Mm-hmm. And I know I'm working in finance and mortgages and that kind of thing, but that is one of my biggest pieces of advice to parents, is to get them into therapy during that process. And I said to my kids, it's like brushing your teeth. You just got to go. And sometimes my kids are like, oh, we don't need therapy. And I'm like, then just go and color on the floor.
Yeah.
The divorce, we had a divorce counselor for the kids, and one, sometimes she'd just go and make slime, and just sit on the carpet and hang out and whatever. But when she needed that person, she was able to lead on it when things got tough. And that's why, if there isn't an incident specifically that they're going for, I think it's just a regular appointment that should be there for the kids, and it helps them to navigate. And even I've had pushback from my kids saying, well, my therapist said that you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't talk about this. And it's like, okay. Yeah. Well, thanks for the feedback, and I won't do that anymore. Right. And I love that because they know what their rights are and they stand up for them. And that teaches them to have some skin in the game too. And boundaries, and say, I don't want to hear about that. Yeah.
And that's where getting that support is so important. And I want to say for parents, because I've had, through the years where people are like, what are you doing if you're just coloring? But there's a lot that goes on in that. Mm-hmm. Like there's lots of conversations that go on during the coloring, and there's lots of life skills and resiliency that, a good therapist, good child, youth therapist is always looking to build resiliency. And it's not just in regard to the divorce and separation. It's about, how do we best build resources and skills for this young person in life. And as we know, there's a lot to deal with.
Kids are navigating so much today on top of divorce and separation of their parents. It might be something on social media. It might be something that happened at school. And if they're regularly going and they have somebody that is not their parents, that maybe they can openly trust and know that information is fully protected. Yeah. That's just, it's irreplaceable.
It is, and it's valuable. It's like I always talk about, mental health is health, right? In the same way that you have your, family doctor, if you're lucky enough to have a family doctor these days, having that mental health professional who's also looking for your, mental health is such a great resource. And I believe kind of needed almost now with so much stimuli and overload in the society. So, it can help on many levels.
Yeah. You wear a lot of hats in your practice.
Yes.
So therapist, parenting coordinator. Can you explain the role differences between being, a divorce therapist and a parenting coordinator, and the lines.
Right.
Explain it to me.
Yeah, and it's different. There's, there's lots of great resources out there. And I've been, quite fortunate to have worn a lot of the hats, right? So, but, you can have a co-parenting therapist. You can have your own parenting coach, right? That can just help you, or a divorce coach that can help you kind of moving through things. You can work with somebody as a co-parenting therapist who might work with both of you and try to help you get more effective communication. A parenting coordinator is kind of a special role, and it's actually quite a complex role. It's, embedded into the Family Law Act here in BC, where you act as a mediator with the parents. And your goal is very much about best interest of the child. But the thing that makes it very different than the other roles is if the parents can't make decisions, there's some things that the parenting coordinator can actually make determinations and decisions about, whereas the other roles don't have that kind of authority in them, right? Like a co-parenting therapist might try to encourage you, but they can never make your decision, right? A parenting coordinator will try to get you guys to make your own decisions, but if you really can't, it might be about an extracurricular activity. It might be about, what camps are going to be happening, what school they might be going to. They can, under the FLA here, make a determination and decision. Now, it's limited. They cannot make decisions in regard to custody, in regard to parenting time and how much. That is exclusive and stays with the courts. But a parenting coordinator can make, some of the other decisions if the parents won't. But they don't want to make those decisions. They want to help the parents make the decisions. But in the end, when you have parents that are in conflict and they can't make decisions, that will harm children. Children, we need decisions made. It can't just spin endlessly. Yeah. Right? So the parenting coordinator can actually keep parents out of court because it can be quicker and a more efficient way to get those decisions made if the parents can't do them than the court. And
your parenting coordinator is probably not going to cost as much as your lawyer. So it's better to use that parenting coordinator to help you with those decisions than to have the lawyer do that.
And you don't have, it's a pretty quick process in the sense that if you come to the decision, okay, we can't make this decision, then it gets handed over kind of formally to the parenting coordinator. They take basically almost like submissions from both sides, and then they go back and they, write out a determination. That's a lot quicker. That can be done in a week or two, as opposed to, 8 months to wait to get a court date, or even a year and a half. So you can get the decisions done in a much more child-sensitive and timely manner.
Right. And that's often a document that's produced so that it's very clear what's been arranged. Mm-hmm. And then that can often act as an addendum to the separation agreement where it's actually attached to the separation agreement. This is what's been agreed on as far as the care for the children, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Is it helpful or harmful for family lawyers to coordinate with and family therapists to communicate with each other about the family situation?
Yeah, it's a great question because a lot of therapists, like when I went to therapy school, we were all very afraid of lawyers, right? You get a call, the lawyer's called your office, and you're terrified. Like a lot of counselors are very scared of talking to lawyers. But first of all, they shouldn't be talking to lawyers unless they have an authorization from their client to do so. Just because a lawyer calls does not mean you have to talk to them. Yeah. Right? Like you have to actually have authorization to do so. And some therapists get so intimidated, next thing they know, they're talking to them. And that's not the way to do it. But when you have authorization to actually talk to the lawyer, it can be really helpful. Or the lawyers, like if you're doing co-parenting counseling or you're, working with the family as a whole, being able to talk to both lawyers is really helpful. Yeah. And especially if those lawyers, and I have to say, most of the lawyers I know, are really resolution based. There's very few lawyers I know, very few, and I know a lot of lawyers, is that who actually thrive in the conflict or make, there's this
super litigious.
Yeah, litigious.
Let's go to court. Let's
I want to get all this money and go to court. The lawyers I know, that is not the way they're operating. They're busy enough. They don't need to, drum up any work for themselves. So if you're talking with these resolution-based lawyers, you can actually really help circumvent things getting litigious.
Yes.
And so for myself, I have found it really helpful. And so I'm now at the point where I used to, at the beginning, I was kind of fearful of it. Now I'm like, I'd like to talk to your lawyer,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, if things are getting, because a lot of people will be like, I need to go to court. I need to be litigious. I think more people need to understand that going to court is like going to Vegas. You never know what's going to happen, and nobody's going to come out being happy.
No.
So it's way better off to have a resolution and to use the professionals to help you get there.
Yes, absolutely. That is such a good point. One of the things I always say is I can't say I've ever been able to say court was good for the kids.
Yeah, it's not good for anybody.
It wasn't. The resources that it takes, the time, the energy, the remaining on a negative focus, the positioning, none of that is good for the kids. Whereas if everybody's kind of focused on, how do we actually assist this family transitioning, remember, with some grace and dignity here, man, can that help a family? Sometimes the families that it helps the most are the ones that didn't even know how much it helped them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then there's the financial impact of that too, of going that far.
Yeah.
What are some tips that you have on shifting your mindset from parenting from the role of being a spouse to parenting from the role of being a co-parent?
Yeah, it can be hard to make that shift, right? Especially when you were in your view of the spouse, it was all this, it was a collective, right? Like you said, moving from the we to me, right? But, the way I encourage people is look at it as a job, and do good work. This is a job now, right? Co-parenting your children, raising them up. And so even if you're having some challenges with your co-parent, just try to deal with it like you might deal with a difficult situation at work, right? Keep a bit of a distance and perspective on it and recognize, okay, this is going to have those logistics and some tasks involved, and we've got decisions to make, and try to be as good of a worker as you can be in that situation. And again, back to that thing of what story do you want your children to tell? A success story. We want them to tell a success story. So know that role of moving into co-parent is part of the success story.
And instead of trying to focus on the coffee here, try and see the bigger picture
Try
and
to
the
see the
long
bigger
term
picture.
and see what you want for the future.
Keep the diamond in your mind, right? Of your children growing and thriving. And, one of the things I always say is going through hard things. Yeah, we want to protect our children from that. But that's actually what develops our character. So it's not about protecting them and keeping them in a bubble. It's about being beside them as they find their own inner strengths of dealing with these challenging things in life. So, going through something hard doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It means you get to kind of pull on sides of yourself that you didn't even know were there.
Yeah. During a lot of my transition, I had this thing up on my phone that said, what do you want instead?
Yeah.
So if it's not going the way you want it to, what do you want instead of the situation that you're in?
Mm-hmm.
And focus on that instead of focusing on how ugly it is right now.
Right.
And sometimes it's easier to get to that outcome if you're focusing on that outcome instead of getting caught up in the emotion that you're stuck in this moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, this is a question I have to ask. Often I hear, my ex is not capable of taking care of their kids.
Right.
They never did anything to look after them during the marriage. How is it possible that they can they only want them 50% of the time because of the child support or because of this or to hurt me or do this? Mm-hmm. How do you coach people through that when they think that the other parent isn't capable of looking after their own children?
Yeah, it is. It's an important question, right? Because a lot of people really struggle with that, especially if they were, in the position of kind of the primary caregiver in a lot of ways and the one that spent the most time with the children. And it is hard. That's a hard adjustment. But the thing I really try to encourage people is, even if that's the case, having more time And a richer relationship with that other parent will benefit the children. So sometimes don't worry about the motivation. That's not yours to have to, figure everything out. Like children, again, I said, the golden ticket is a well-attached relationship with both parents. So maybe the way the system was, if one parent wasn't that involved, maybe it wasn't even that great for the kids. And now there's an opportunity for that parent to step up.
Well, they don't really have a choice because they're now sole parenting those kids. And somebody's got to get the meals on the table, get the lunch boxes made, do the grocery shopping, handle everything that's involved. So where they may have let you carry the load of doing that in the relationship, now they have to learn to do that on their own and give them the chance.
Yeah. And sometimes, necessity makes us grow. And so if they are growing, and there is a value in hands-on parenting.
Yeah.
Like from an attachment perspective, that idea of that parent who does tuck you in, that parent who does pick you up from school when you're feeling sick, that parent that does, pack your lunches, like some things that we just think, like those actually are very valuable in building that security of attachment and a sense of self in the child, that they are loved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And going back to children and their resilience, they're going to two completely different households. Yep. Sometimes mom does some things this way, dad does things this way, and the kids are adapting.
They are.
And they're learning adaptability, which I think does in turn help them in their adult life when it comes to navigating things socially, navigating things in corporate environments when they go on to have careers or do different things. I think sometimes living in separate households can actually provide they're navigating things early and learning to adapt.
It really does. I'm so glad you brought that up, because the cornerstones of maturation, right, to truly mature requires three things. And it requires resilience, it requires adaptability, and it requires what we call emergence. And emergence is like bringing forth your own creativity, yourself, your strengths, your vulnerabilities, but something that's coming forth out of you. So inherently in a separation, a child is going to have to pull on all of those things. And if those are the cornerstones of maturity, it actually lays the foundation so it's not this bad thing. It's like good things can come because you have to adapt and you have to be resilient and you have to maybe learn to express yourself. So that is something that can build on our maturity in an incredible way.
Yeah. Divorce is always tough, no matter what. What is one piece of advice that you would give to any parent that's either thinking about going through divorce, in the middle of divorce, navigating the process? What's the one piece of advice you'd want to give them?
That it will be tough, but it won't always be tough, right? Like we all have to look, anything that we have to deal with in life that's challenging and difficult, right? And it does develop in us. It helps us understand our strengths. So, grieve the loss, that's okay. Recognize what we've lost, but know that things change. And so if you're really struggling and feeling very sad or mad or hurt or whatever, know that those feelings will change, right? There will be a time, look to the future and know that there will be a time you look back on the difficult times and trust that.
That's great advice. Okay, so rapid fire questions,
Sure.
Alyson. Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Morning or night owl?
Used to be a night owl, but I'm becoming a morning person.
You're a morning person?
I'm now morphed into a morning person.
What's the book you're currently reading? Actually, let's ask a bigger question. What is one book that you would recommend to people going through? Like, is there some sort of co-parenting book? What book would you recommend to our audience?
Well, there's just so many, right?
Maybe give me two.
But there's, I can't think of them specifically, but I mean, anything on attachment and understanding attachment and how to preserve attachment through divorce, and anything that is kind of based on kind of healthy grieving and movement, right? Are books that I think there's lots of great books out there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
What book are you currently reading?
I just finished reading a book called The Glass House. I don't know if you've heard about it. It was fabulous.
I have.
So good.
Really?
Yeah. And I can't remember the author's name, but The Glass House was an excellent book.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, really good.
What's your favorite guilty pleasure TV show?
Oh boy, this is embarrassing, but I'm really into Traders right now.
I haven't heard of it.
Oh, it's just way too fun. It's got Alan coming in it, and he's, in some Scottish.
Oh, I love him.
Oh my gosh, it's just
Fun.
It is guilty pleasure fun.
Okay, great.
It is.
What's your go-to comfort food after a long day?
I go chocolate. Okay, just admit it.
I think I hear that every single time I ask that question.
Yes.
What song instantly lifts your mood?
All You Need Is Love.
Oh, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
If you had a free weekend, well, your kids are out of the nest now, but if you have a free weekend, what's your go-to thing to do?
Oh, I'm a really social person. I enjoy getting together with friends. I love having people over for dinner, going out. So I love that, but I also love my moments of quiet of just walking in the woods. That is one of my things I really enjoy. And funny, because some of my friends will go, "Oh, I want to come for a walk for you." I'm like, with you. And I'm like, no, I just want to go for a walk myself, but I'll meet you later.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's a hidden talent people don't know about you?
I sing.
Oh, really?
I'm not going to say I sing well, but I do sing.
I like that. Wine, cocktail, or mocktail?
Absolutely wine.
Yeah. I'm with you. Red or white?
Both.
Okay.
Equal opportunist.
And what can you always find in your purse?
Mints, you just never know when you might need to freshen up a little, right? And so always have a mint in there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Alyson.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed our talk. I always get so much value from any of the conversations that we've had. And thank you for all the work that you do and how you contribute to the community. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that, Sabina. But I also want to say that back to you. Thank you for, creating these forums for very important conversations and recognizing the importance of this and the contributions that you do. And so I want to give that right back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Alyson. Thank you for joining me today on the Divorce Circle podcast. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.